After a week-long trip to the U.S., President William Ruto jets back home and is set to flag off 100,000 community health practitioners' kits at Uhuru Park this morning.
Today marks day one of the 30-day period given to passport applicants to pick over 87,000 travel documents lying uncollected at immigration offices or they be destroyed.
And across the borders, American Space Agency NASA successfully brings to Earth samples from the most dangerous known rock in the solar system. The landed samples had been scooped up from the surface of asteroid Bennu in 2020 by the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft.
Well, good morning. This is Morning Cafe. How hot is the coffee where you are this Monday morning, September 25th, 2023? Guess what? Flora Lemuki is back.
Come on, you should be clapping for Kipchoge.
It is good to have you back in studio.
Thank you.
Oh, I tell you the things Stanley has done in the absence. Even tried singing. He tried all sorts of things.
It was twice only.
Nothing was working. So it's really good to have you back.
Thank you so much. And I missed you guys.
We had missed you here.
Oh, we definitely missed you.
Well, good morning, and it's good to be back and happy to see you wherever you're watching us from. Welcome to Morning Cafe, and definitely we have a great show lined up for you. I'm Flora Lemuki.
And I'm used to Stanley Nyarungita. To this particular morning, it's a Monday. So how we do it every single Monday, either matters health and also matters wellness. This particular morning, we get into matters bodybuilding. Tuinue chuma kidogo. And join us for this particular morning. Hope that you had a great weekend, and join us for this breakfast show as we kickstart this particular week for you. Now to the big story.
Oh, yes. Our top story this morning, Nairobi County has announced plans to dispose of 193 unclaimed bodies lying at the city mortuary and the Mama Lucy Hospital. In a public notice circulated on Sunday, the county announced that there are 169 unclaimed bodies at the city morgue and 24 at the Mama Lucy Hospital. City Hall said it will proceed to seek authority to dispose the bodies if relatives of the deceased persons do not claim them in 1 week. The cause of death for the persons listed in the notice ranges from suicide, electrocution, drowning, shooting, murder, natural, and sudden. Now, the counties of origin of the majority of the bodies are marked as unknown. If granted the petition to dispose the bodies, it will raise disposal figures to over 500 this year alone. Now, in February, the county disposed of 250 bodies after obtaining a court order. The unclaimed bodies had been preserved at City Mortuary, Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital, and the Mbagathi Hospital Mortuary. That's our top story this morning. Let's get the diary before we take a look at the dailies.
Well, and on today's diary, we kickstart on a very interesting note and a happy one with Kipchoge's win yesterday, as Eliud Kipchoge maintained his winning streak after winning the Berlin Marathon. He locked 2 hours, 2 minutes, 42 seconds as Kipchoge now becomes the first marathoner to have won the Berlin Marathon for 5 times. And away from that, today marks World Pharmacist Day, and as the world commemorates this day, this year's theme aims to present opportunities to increase awareness on a pharmacist as an intelligent solution of health services to meet future needs of health systems around the world after the COVID-19 crisis. Also today, the National Dialogue Committee is to continue hearing public views from organizations with Public Service Committee, Political Parties Liaison Committee, and Kenya Private Sector Alliance expected to present their grievances today, among other organizations. And President William Ruto is expected to be flagging off 100,000 CHP kits for distribution to all the 47 counties at Uhuru Park today. And of course, you can catch that live program at TV 47 from 11 a.m. Away from that, some politics. Kawira Mwangaza was in Meru County as a fresh impeachment motion could be looming for Meru County Governor as rift between the MCAs and Kawira intensifies, even as clergy comes in to ask for peace in that county. And preparations for exam season kickstarts with the national government administration officials, county and sub-county and Ministry of ICT officials set to meet at the NEC headquarters today to deliberate on the preparedness of exams and ways to curb cheating as exams approach. And today in history, we do have this day, San Diego plane accident happened in 1978, and a Pacific Southwest Airlines jet collides in mid-air with a small Cessna over San Diego, killing 153 people on September 25, 1978, and may their souls rest in peace. Away from that, it's People's Republic of Algeria proclaimed in 1962. On this day, the creation of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria was formally proclaimed on such a day in 1962. The following day, after being named, Premier Ahmed Ben Bella formed a cabinet that linked the leadership of the three power bases, the army, the party, and the government. That is what we have on our diary this morning. Time now to look at what is headlining in the dailies.
All right, to the dailies now, and the big story, Ruto term limit. This is a standard. Ruto term limit, jitters over push for extra years. This is a big story on the front page of the Standard this Monday. Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei has submitted a memorandum to the bipartisan talks team proposing to increase the presidential term limit to 7 years. But lawyers and politicians are having none of that, asking the team to ignore the request, but others see hidden hand in the drive. And a quote there by the senator, this enables the president to have good opportunity to form and establish a formidable team to deliver his manifesto. Besides, the presidential election is always highly profiled as a result of it being conducted within a short period of time. And on this story, if you look at the inside pages, it talks about how if this goes through, then President William Ruto could actually end up serving for 19 years. Because if you change the term limit, it can only begin afresh for whoever is in office at the time. The story is on page 4 of the Standard. The other big story, of course, and we mentioned it, Eliud the fifth, 2 hours, 2 minutes, 42 seconds. That's the time Kipchoge won by 31 seconds. The fifth fastest time of his illustrious career. Eliud Kipchoge yesterday broke the record for the most wins in the Berlin Marathon after bagging his 5th accolade in a time of 2 hours, 2 minutes, 42 seconds. And yes, applause to Eliud Kipchoge for that victory. Other highlights on the front page of the Standard this morning. On the top strip, inside Gachagua meeting to trim Kuria to size. The story is on page 8, a very interesting story there. It makes for a very good read. Inside Gachagua meeting to trim Kuria to size. The politics definitely continues. On the back page of the Standard, yes, Kipchoge chalks up 5th title at Berlin Marathon. It's all about athletics and the win by Eliud Kipchoge in Berlin.
Well, at least the back page is not matters Arsenal. On the top strip there, you're talking about matters HIV. Remember how it should really be talked about even on the front pages of our dailies.
Yes.
To see there a pull out, the health and science.
The difference is when it comes to Kenya, you talk about HIV and it's always in the inside pages, the pull out. But you go to Tanzania or Uganda, and you might just find a story on the front page. So yes, the health and science pull out on the Standard has a story there, what it's like aging with HIV. Well, that's the Standard this Monday.
Well, let's have a look at the Daily Nation this morning, and the top headline there, fees windfall for private universities. And private universities have reported a high demand for admissions as students shun public ones following the adoption of the new funding model that many perceive as expensive, especially because of the loan component. The development is a huge relief for the private institutions that have experienced low intakes since 2016. That story is on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. And King Kipchoge does it again. Eliud Kipchoge there crosses the finish line to secure his 5th victory in the men's race yesterday, Berlin Marathon in Germany. And congratulations to the greatest of all time there. And in matters politics, on the right strip of the Daily Nation this morning, still the story on the proposal to amend presidential term limits sparks outrage. That is a proposal by Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei to amend presidential term limits has drawn sharp reactions, with critics saying it could be a ploy to introduce presidents for life in the near future. And actually, that forms the basis of a question this morning, which we ask, do you support Senator Samson Cherargei's proposal to increase the presidential term to 7 years? Do you support Senator Samson Cherargei's proposal to increase the presidential term to 7 years? At TV47 News on X, at TV47 Kenya on Facebook, the hashtag is Morning Cafe. And on the Daily Nation, there an interesting interview that was aired on one of the media stations yesterday on Camino, my 53 years in legal practice and why I don't own a smartphone. Interesting read there, sorry, on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. And on the very top strip of the Daily Nation this morning, El Nino, Kenyans remember 1997 as they prepare for deluge. One of the unhappy pages in the country's history of books is the impact of the 10-month rainy season that hit Kenyans in 1997. When rains began in May that year, some people imagined they would subside in a matter of days or weeks, but they lasted until February 1998. The country's meteorological department had an announced impending El Nino, which would result in the above average rainfall in the country. That story there is on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation this morning.
Right, on the Business Daily, I was just taking a look at the back page of Daily Nation. Still not a mention of Arsenal, so I'm a happy man this morning. I was waiting for Fred and Flora to...
Well, let's move on with the dailies. We shall not focus on what is not there.
The focus is on Kipchoge today.
On the Business Daily, ladies and gentlemen, Nairobi climbs 13 places on cheapest cities for experts list. So weak shilling hands salary increases to expatriates and a boost for restaurants, shopping malls and safari lodges. They have a number there, 19.4%. That is a depreciation of the shilling against the dollar since the year opened. And on the bottom strip of Business Daily, record high treasury bill rates set a stage for expensive loans. And on the right side, that is on the ticker, sugar production down 31% on cane shortage. And employers, workers oppose more taxes to fund unemployment stipends. And finally, KenGen ordered to pay GDC 3.9 billion Kenyan shillings on the ticker. On the back page, matters how sustainability and innovation can drive local mobility. Some e-mobility matters that is on the Business Daily this morning.
Okay. Tuangazie masuala kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo sasa. Na kwenye Taifa Leo, nyumba ya kelele, habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Nyumba ya kelele, rais ana kibarua kigumu cha kurejesha utulivu ndani ya chama cha UDA, muungano wake wa Kenya Kwanza na serikalini. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Hali si shwari tena katika serikali ya Kenya Kwanza, inavyokumbwa na migogoro kona zote na uasi wa ndani. They talk about issues between Cleophas Malala na spika wa bunge Moses Wetangula, naibu wa rais na waziri Moses Kuria, Gladys Sholei, naibu wa spika na waziri Ababu Namwamba, seneta Buni Halwale na mshauri wa uchumi David Ndii, seneta mbunge wa Iyala Hassan Omar na mbunge wa Nyali Mohamed Ali, mkuu wa Ikulu Felix Koskei na waziri wa maji Alice Wahome. Migogoro tu kadha ya watu wa Kenya Kwanza kule na UDA viongozi, just a sample of some of the cracks within Kenya Kwanza there. Vidokezo vingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo pale chini: Liverpool wapaa sare kwa Arsenal, Eliud atia fora Berlin mara ya 5, na vyuo vya umma vyasusiwa. Habari nyingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo: PA yakataa mistari ya UDA. That's on the top strip. Baada ya Ford Kenya na ANC, sasa chama cha Kingi cha pinga kumezwa. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 4. Hizi ni siasa za UDA na Kenya Kwanza. Unakumbuka katibu wa UDA Cleophas Malala alisema vyama vingine katika muungano wa Kenya Kwanza vyafaa kufungwa na wote waungane na UDA. Urais miaka 7, Cherargei aona moto. Seneta wa UDA ajipata pabaya kutaka muhula wa urais urefushwe. Ukurasa wa 3 kuna habari kamili ya mambo hayo. It's definitely one of the biggest talking point today and also forms the basis of our question. But hayo ndio maswala kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo Jumatatu hii.
Well, let's have a look at the Star this morning. Chorus of outrage greets term limit talk. Of course, that story on the increase in terms of the presidential limit. LSK boss Eric Theory dismissed Cherargei's proposal and instead suggested a single 7-year term limit. And on the top strip of the Star this morning, how lady with Kalonzo hairstyle is climbing up the political ladder. That is nominated Senator there, Esther Okenyuri. And the headline on the Star this morning: Marvelous Kipchoge makes Kenyans proud again. On the right strip of the Star this morning, cops search a Kibera 14 suspect in murder of hospital finance director. And away from that, senators are to probe cases of dragging revelers in clubs. That's what we have on the Star this morning.
Okay.
On People Daily are steering away from the whole talks of matters, the term limits actually, and they go with a very interesting bit here. Matters corruption, that is a big story on People Daily. So they say MPs join water wars, and House team summon sector leaders. As wrangles rock the Minister of Water and CS Wahome, committee has directed all persons mentioned in the scandal to appear before it's starting Thursday this week. We'll heads roll on page 4, so they take a look at a glance. Number 1, St. Parking. 2 CEOs of water agencies have been suspended to pave way for probe after EACC raised questions on projects. And supremacy battle. Head of Civil Service intervened after CS failed to comply with graft team letter asking her to suspend Twitter over graft claims. And number 3, a house divided. Legislators are worried about the spat between the CS and head of civil service amid accusations that PS Rono has not run ministry affairs well. Other highlights making it to the People Daily on the left strip of it. Matters devolution here. Governors face wrath of MCAs. Mwangaza targeted by Meru leaders as Nyamira ward reps differ on whether to impeach Nyaribo. And Kenya's cash pile declines over debt. And on the bottom strip there, we are not fighting, say Mudavadi Wetangula. They were speaking at Ishikulu Primary School in Shinyalu, Kagame County yesterday, where they revisited how they entered a pact with William Ruto ahead of last year's polls. And finally, on the top strip of People Daily, the king himself, King Choge, Eliud Kipchoge, star shines bright at Berlin race. They have it on page 4, page 28, and on the back page of it. I believe that is all for the Kenyan dailies. Can now cross over.
Yes, and just to mention that Eliud Kipchoge is also the top trend on X for the better part of yesterday and this morning as well. Let's cross over now to our neighboring countries, and we kick off with Uganda. And on the front page of the Daily Monitor this morning, the big headline there, over 600 rebels stuck as CMI detains leader. Uncertainty. The fate of more than 600 rebels remains unclear after the Chieftaincy of Military Intelligence, CMI, detained their leader, that's Brigadier General Ayiga Rajabu Ayile, who was negotiating amnesty for himself and his fighters. And that's a big headline on the Daily Monitor today in Kampala. On the bottom there of the front page of the Daily Monitor, pictures of a deplorable situation there. Accommodation, cancer patients, caretakers cry out for help. And there's a very disturbing picture there of some of the tents housing needy cancer patients at the Uganda Cancer Institute in Kampala. Wow, that's a rather sad state of affairs. Other highlights on the front page of the Daily Monitor: Kabarole residents construct 40-kilometer road. Elsewhere, how girls in Kamuli are rescuing abused peers. And on the top strip of the Daily Monitor this morning, Makerere to evict over 300 businesses today. The rest are just highlights from the inside magazines, Healthy Living and Your Education Guide. And that's the front page of the Daily Monitor. Those are the stories headlining in Uganda this morning.
Well, time to cross over to Tanzania. The Citizen this morning, the top headline there, BOT increases gold purchases. The Bank of Tanzania has embarked on a gold acquisition spree in a strategic move aimed at fostering the growth of the mining sector and bolstering foreign exchange reserves. Also on the Citizen, the top strip there, Tanzania opts for One Health disease control. And away from that, investor attraction mission comes in London. And we also have a story there, tampons are luxury beyond reach for many women in Tanzania. That's what's headlining on the Citizen this morning.
Na tukisalia katika masuala ya bongo, the sister page of the Citizen, gazeti la Mwananchi hii leo, uozo watisha ofisi za umma wabainika wakati wa ziara ya Waziri Mkuu Kassim Majaliwa ndani ya saa 144. Watumishi 12 waingia matatani kwenye mikoa miwili. Wachambuzi wadai uwajibikaji ofisi za umma umeshuka, wataka hatua zichukuliwe. Gao mwandishi wa vitabu alianzia uandishi gerezani. Vidokezo vingine ni kuwa kigogo CWT arejeshwa kufundisha. Kwingineko wataja njia za kupata umeme wa uhakika. Ni masuala ya Dar es Salaam. Kwingineko ni kuwa hapo juu, simulizi picha maarufu iliyomuua mpiga picha. Ni picha iliyojizolea umaarufu hadi ikashinda tuzo ya Pulitzer ya upigaji picha bora duniani, lakini baadaye iligeuka balaa kwa mpiga picha. Kurasa 21. Masuala ya afya, uchafuzi wa hewa unavyosababisha magonjwa ya moyo. Hapo ni katika Mwananchi hii leo. Also take a look at as we finalize on the East African here. The East African has a whole bold page of Paul Kagame, Rwanda's president. And they say the fourth. So Rwanda's president, Paul Kagame, has said he will run for fourth term in 2024, with critics putting him in club of African big men who cling on to power. More on that is on page 10. Other headlines that you'll be seeing the entire week, this week, for the East African. Why Somalia wants ATMIS drawdown halted. Africa Union mission is leaving a security vacuum that Mogadishu cannot immediately plug. And Ruto Kagame sick deals with the US investors. From sports to transport and tech, EL leaders make crucial links on Unga Sandlands on page 4 and 5. Well, other pull-ups there inside The magazine, Nigerian singer drama will not come down just yet. I love that tagline. And it matters money, hue and cry at Mombasa Port. Matters markets, Airtel Uganda IPO off to a slow start. And matters review of SDGs as conquered. And finally, an opinion there, an unpopular opinion by J. Buenbo. DR Congo should no federate with the US or China for a bit, on page 16. That is on the East African this morning.
Let's come back home and take a look at the cartoons this morning. And on page 13 of the Daily Nation, a cartoon about Kenyan police and their newfound mission in Haiti. That's on page 13 of the Daily Nation today. And they say, we have what it takes, but a shadow behind this Kenyan police officer shows some violence and a brutal clampdown on protesters. So that is what they have. And that is what it takes to ensure peace. The irony there. On the front page of the, sorry, not the front page. On page 12 of the Standard, the cartoon there talks about the elevator picture. A lady there with the name Meg, must be the US ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman. And the kind of pitches she's been making on behalf of Kenya. She's gained notoriety for supporting Kenya, and she's actually looking more like the Kenyan ambassador out there and not the US ambassador to Kenya. Well, her 30 seconds are almost up, someone says, although she's already up in the clouds. The elevator picture. That's a cartoon on the Standard this morning.
Right.
I think we can take a look at on the People Daily.
On the People Daily.
And the Business Daily as well.
It goes with matters cost of living. A very interesting bit there.
On the People Daily, page 10, it's always on page 10, yes?
Yeah.
And how the cost of living is wringing the life out of Mwananchi. And he's asking, for how long am I supposed to be in this situation? Interesting. And I think
sad.
Continuously, I'm really impressed by the kind of cartoons on People Daily.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes some of the other cartoons are a bit off. People Daily has consistently captured what Mwananchi is going through with the cost of living and high fuel prices in Kenya.
Oh, yes. On Business Daily, for business enthusiasts, goes with matters. You'll find that beneath the calm exterior, I'm obsessed with making profits. It's just one of those you can't really get to understand and until you understand matters business. There you have it, even for the viewers this morning. As we cross over, you'll find that beneath the calm and exterior, I'm obsessed with making profits.
Oh, yes.
Really have to
Every
understand.
businessman is obsessed with profit.
With profits.
As he or she should.
Oh, yes.
Yes, remember the question we're asking this morning. Do you support Senator Cherargei's proposal to increase the presidential term to 7 years? Do you support Senator Samson Cherargei's proposal to increase the presidential term to 7 years? Continue interacting with us on our social media pages, TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. Right after the break, we'll be having a panel. Raphael Obonyo, public policy analyst, Justina Wamae, former presidential running mate, and Josphat Kamanya, political analyst, as we look at the state of the nation. And of course, that question on presidential term limits or that proposal to extend the presidential term. Do stand by for that. And remember to continue interacting with us on our social media pages. You're watching Morning Cafe. Let's now take a break. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. Remember the question we're asking this morning: do you support Senator Samson Cherargei's proposal to increase the presidential term limit to 7 years? Now, it's definitely the biggest talking point today. Over the weekend it was, and will definitely continue this whole week. This is a proposal that the senator for Nandi made as he submitted his memorandum to the partisan talks team at Bomas of Kenya. That team continues with its deliberations this week, and yes, I think this is one of the proposals that has elicited a lot of reactions from all the others. Remember, there are proposals to increase the number of counties, some to increase the number of constituencies, but this one definitely has generated a lot of talk. And we'll be looking at this with my panelists this morning. As I had mentioned, on my immediate left, Raphael Obonyo, public policy analyst. Raphael, it's always a pleasure to have you in studio.
Thank you for having me.
Justina Wamae, a very familiar face on this panel, a former presidential running mate.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Asante, Fred.
And for the very first time, I get to host Josphat Kamanya, political analyst. It's good to have you in studio.
Thank you for having us, Fred.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Morning.
Let's start off with, of course, I know you'll want to congratulate Eliud Kipchoge.
Yeah, something good, man. Something to smile about.
And it's always interesting to look at the dailies and you find something like this on the front page. Yeah. At least you kick off with a smile. And definitely another accolade for the greatest of all time, Eliud Kipchoge. He broke the record for the most wins in the Berlin Marathon after bagging his 5th accolade in a time of 2 hours, 2 minutes, 42 seconds. Congratulations to him. And yes, now to the headline. Ruto term limits on the Standard. Jitters over push for extra years. This has been a discussion for some time. It's not the first time we're hearing 7 years being mentioned here and there. Some people say it should be 1 7-year term. But what the Standard has done on the inside pages is to just show how long, if at all this thing goes through, how long Ruto could actually be president. And they talk of 19 years. Ruto could serve for 19 years if proposal by Cherargei is adopted. The story is on page 4 of the Standard. And let's start off from there. Raphael, a lot of criticism has been directed towards this proposal. But this is not the first time we're hearing about such a proposal. Why are people, is it because it is Senator Cherargei who's coming up with it right now that so many people are opposed to it?
Thanks so much. I think one of the reasons why this has raised firestorm is because this government is already 1 year old. I mean, of course, people are already assessing their performance, and there are concerns on the ground that there hasn't been, at least in terms of the pledges made, the promises made, nothing much has been achieved yet, or at least they've not been able to meet people's expectations. And then instead of addressing that, and within the 4 years that are remaining, they're already raising concerns that 5 years is not enough to do anything, so they want to extend that. So it's seen as an excuse to not deliver on what they are promised on the basis of time, saying, no, we need a much longer time. And of course, it's not the first time that people have raised concerns that we do not want a situation where we're going to raise the term limit. Every time that has come up, and most recently by the Fafi MP, Kenyans still raised concerns and say that is not an issue we want to discuss now. 5 years is enough. In fact, we should even reduce it to 4 years, like what is happening in the United States, so that the time that you have should deliver on what you pledged on Kenya. And then 19 years is a long time to be in power. And
I think that is what will scare off so many people.
And sometimes African leaders, because we've seen it across the continent, African leaders don't realize that anything good must be short. In the sense that if Mandela stayed in power for another 5 years, I'm telling you, the story would have been very, very different. So it's always good to come in, do whatever you can do, even if it's just one thing or two, whatever you can do, and then ship out. So if you overstay, and we saw it with Moi, and I think Ruto won't be different. 19 years is a long time.
But surely, Justina, is 5 years enough for a presidential term, given our unique behavior when it comes to the presidential or the election cycle? The first year, you still trying to work out the politics, then you work for 2 years, then the campaigns begin. Surely, wouldn't we benefit from a longer presidential term so that you give the president at least a gap of about 5 years in the middle to actually work?
I think 5 years is enough, Fred. And you know, leaders are the ones who dictate the mood of a country. If the president got into power and started getting the job done, we wouldn't even be in the campaign mood. We would miss him, we'd feel impact. I think when they say that he needs a team, that is where political parties come into place. And I always tell professionals, involve yourself in a political party so that at least if the political party births a government, once they win, they'll have a larger scope of professionals. So when he tells us about a team, it goes to say that maybe the CSs are not competent. If they had worked together in a party for very long, they would have realized their strengths and weaknesses and willingness. So I think 5 years is a long time. Only that once you win a seat in this country, you want to start campaigning for it. And I've always held that when you look at politicians, they cannot survive in this environment that we are in, the way we survive. They can't. Then they want to just cushion themselves in politics where there is a assured salary from taxes, but they don't want to come up with policies that make life easier in terms of private sector thriving, so that even then they'll have options. If you're not in politics, you go to private sector. So why are they cushioning themselves in politics? Because they know life out here is hard. And that is why I tell them, your role is to influence policy. Make life out here easy for the ordinary Kenyan, so that even if you're not in power, you feel comfortable. So I think this is just a way of creating a job for someone, and it's not going to work. Because even if Moi woke up today, he will not be able to lead this country. The Kenyan of today is educated. We are 82.3% literate. So there is information, there is everything. So it's going to be a very difficult time for the president.
Yes, yet the discussion about how our approach to democracy and how democracy has worked for our situation calls definitely for a relook at how these presidential terms, how the whole system works. Don't you think that it serves a purpose to actually relook at some of these limits, that probably even a single 7-year or a single 10-year term for the president could be something we can consider?
Well, I think constitutionally we're even due for the review of our constitution. And a boundary review is one of the things, and then presidential term could be one of the things. However, our president was very direct, because remember the Fafi MP raised this issue a while ago. And he said, I'm not interested. So as an individual, I take faith in his word that he would not be interested in the extension. However, looking at the issue being raised, we should be asking ourselves why. Why do we need to have a presidential term extended to 7 months, to 7 years or 9, and reduced to a 1 term and not 2, regardless of the length of the term? I think that's a question, it's a conversation we need to have as a country, because we need to move from individualizing offices, as our would have been Deputy President is saying. We need to have policies, we need to have administration working that are able to transition from one to the next. So whether it is Fred who is the president now for 4 years, and then next time is Christine for the next 4 years, the public policy remains efficient and effective to the citizens. But we need to walk away from these issues of saying, if it's not Fred, it cannot work. Again, we have to give credit where it's due. We're only a year into the new administration. The president is doing his best to do both bilateral relations. Our local governments are still trying to fine-tune the systems. So it's a bit too early to judge and say people are seeking, we want to extend to 7 years so that we can have more time to deliver. The flip side could be, we want to extend to 7 years because people have so much faith in this administration. They feel 5 years is not enough, but it might do more in 7. So it's a conversation worth having.
Yet in other jurisdictions, like in the US, they only have 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
But the argument is also the same. Is a 4-year term enough? Donald Trump came, and of course he never imagined he could be a one-term president.
Yeah.
Then you're given 4 years, and of course at the end of it you feel, no, I should have gotten some more time, because the problem is the second term is never guaranteed.
Yeah, I think, and I agree with Josphat, this is a conversation that we need to have in terms of how to strengthen our democracy, how to make democracy work for us. But I think the timing is what is of concern. I think this is not the time to start discussing about extending presidential limit from 5 to 7 years. And also, I think what you can do in 3 years, you can do in 5 years. What you can do in 5 years, you can do in 7 years, really. I don't think there's a huge difference. It's only that for politicians have this sense of permanence. You know, they always, and like Justina did say, they arrive and they want to permanently pitch their tents there. So I think that is what is happening in this case. But again, I won't be surprised. Of course, President Ruto did say that he's not interested, but that is what Kagame said. And after some time, Kagame said, it's not me, it's the people who say. So this is a matter that I am sure, because all of us want the privileges, the trappings that come with presidency. Even if I got that opportunity, I would want to stick in there. And so if someone says they want you to stay there longer, you'll say, provided you can make it happen, I'm good with it. So I won't be surprised in another 3 years, Ruto will say, that's not my debate, that's not my conversation, it's a people's conversation.
And it could actually happen because we are at that point in time where we are re-looking at a possible review of the Constitution. And so many suggestions, so many about an increase in the number of counties, an increase in the number of constituencies, some saying we should reduce the number of counties to about 8 regions. And all these things could actually happen because the interests at the table at the Bomas talks have to be balanced. The possibility that we could have a referendum and have this question among many questions means that there's a possibility, there's a high chance that this could actually happen. There may be criticism right now, but don't you think that whoever wills the biggest political influence will have their day?
True, they will. And sadly, I think even why do we waste a lot of time? When you get into power, you want to undo what the previous person did. You want to show they didn't know anything. How I wish our leaders came in and piggybacked on what this person did. I'm hoping the one will come in after Ruto, if it's me or someone else, will piggyback on the special economic zones.
Justina, did you just use this platform to garner votes?
I have already. People have heard what I was saying. Yeah. So in short, I hope we move away from undoing what someone did previously to just piggyback on it so that it doesn't look like, again, you're wasting time to build another system. It's the same tragedy with counties. You want to throw out people and then bring your own who do not know anything. So you waste a lot of time trying to catch up. But if we go for a referendum, of course these things will pass. Because I have a challenge with the middle class. I do not know why middle class do not want to involve themselves in politics. But the good thing about it is that the economy is forcing them to look at politics. We have come to realize that if your company shuts down because of poor economic policies that have been pushed by politicians, you're going to be alert. So I think even the turmoil that we're going through is a wake-up call for all of us to just get involved in politics. So the middle class need to come and say, okay, what is your thought? Why should Kamau and Nandi tell me, Justina, that this one is better? Well, let's vote for this one. Why should he advise me according to his opinion? I have to have my own mind. I have to decide for myself. So I think it might pass, but if people understand the implication of the 7 years, are you happy with what he's doing in the first year? Then Kenyans will say, okay, let's give him or not. So I want Kenyans to be alert and to own this process so that at least you won't be regretting, why do we have 7 years? And you had an opportunity to vote against it. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Kenyans, do you think Kenyans are really concerned about some of these things? A lot of this conversation is going on X. Yeah. Mm-hmm. On social media, but at a very, it's just on the surface. Many people are not even engaging on it, on this matter. It's about criticism, and then people go back to their cocoons and they go quiet. The possibility that this is a big question for the country in the next few years, definitely more Kenyans need to get involved, but are they?
You know, we're in a very unique terrain, political terrain, because if you look at the last general election that we just did, the active participants were 60-something%. There was a whopping 30-something% that did not vote. And currently, you realize they are part of the people who are driving the narrative on the criticism to the government. So I like it that way, because now that is making everybody realize that actually politics do matter. Politics influence our livelihood. So voting matters. Therefore, this conversation is to escalate gladly, so that people can start to realize that when I don't come out to vote, I'm giving room for anybody else to make a decision on how the leadership of this country is going to be established, on how the policies are going to be, including the term of the presidency. So it is an interesting time we are in, but we need to tone down the political rhetorics and first focus on the economics of the country. Because whether it is this current administration that we are enjoying or the next one that will come, we need economic stability. So that the common mwananchi now will be able to say, I need to vote because the last time I did not vote, unga was this price, this time I'm voting and this is what I am going for. We start having our input as civilians from the word go. So that when now we have a new government, you're able to rise up and say, this is what I did and this is what I expect. But you realize there is less investment on civic education. So people don't know. If you are somebody now, do you care whether the president is there for 7 years or you want the unga to go down to 90? They will say, I want unga. Because you're looking at our immediate needs, which, well, it's a Karl Marx thing, you know, that is what drives us, what we need now, but we need to have longevity. I would agree with Christine when she says we need to have professionals involved in politics, involved in policy. And we start demystifying politics as a bad thing, these politicians, these evil people. No, it is an industry. It is the main industry that drives the country. So if we have people who are well endowed, people who are well informed, people who have at least a need into interest into social justice, we are bound to have better leadership. And then it will not matter whether it is 7 years or 8 or 10. And I think if I were to vote now, I'd vote for shorter. I'd go for 4 and not 7.
But will that therefore increase the frequency that where we get to experience all this political upheaval after every 5 years? To be honest, many people who own businesses know how every election campaign period impacts on their businesses, impacts on their employment, impacts on their families, and so many other things. Don't you think that there are Kenyans who feel, I wish I could wait longer before that next political crisis or elevated political tensions?
Kenyans would want that, but only if things are getting better. You know, if the situation is getting better, Kenyans would want to experience that stability for longer. That is. But imagine a situation where things are not working. Will they still want to wait for longer? Of course not. And for me, I think one of the issues, and you've raised it, is that we are going to have an omnibus in the name of issues that are going to be taken to referendum. And this might be one of them. And to remember, this bipartisan talk is largely composed of politicians. Politicians will always put their political interest first. Truly, high cost of living is not something that will cause a politician a sleepless night compared to him not being in the office the following day. What will they prioritize? Of course, they will prioritize this thing of term limits for presidents, because there are people who are coalescing around presidential candidates. So that will be something that they'll be looking at and saying, look, if this guy is in power, or if so-and-so is the party leader or holding this position, chances of me still being relevant in politics is much higher. So I see an issue like this being prioritized more than anything else. Forget about the boundaries, delimitation and anything. They're going to prioritize this. And this might actually be something that is going to constitute the larger chunk of discussion in the bipartisan talks. And for me, I think Kenyans need to get involved. The uniqueness of Kenyans, or one of the peculiar habits of Kenyans, is that we get really active during elections, and after that we forget about everything. That's why the shorter the term limit, the better also, so that Kenyans can remain engaged and involved. Right now, no one is talking about political matters at all. People are waiting for 2027 elections. So I think the shorter it is, the more active Kenyans are going to be.
We may say that they are actually getting involved by presenting the memoranda to the groups. But we've seen from history, even when during the making of this current constitution, Kenyans got involved. It was well canvassed, Kilifi, Bomas, and everything was agreed. But there was that Naivasha bit where politicians went and canvassed what they need, and that is what we have today. This time around, it only appears that we've started from the other way around, that we're having politicians now coming up with this from the word go. Don't you think that we've lost it already as Kenyans, because politicians are already horse trading? Even the kind of agenda they had laid out at the beginning has kept on changing. Now there's inclusion of even some proposal to have deputy prime ministers, 2 deputy prime ministers, actually. Don't you think we've already lost it?
No, sometimes I think it's better to show up Even if you've lost, just show up. Let them see that Kenyans are involved. If you stay home and you don't even give your memorandum or your side of the story, they'll never see. And that's why Kenyans always say, oh, why should we vote and our votes are going to be stolen? I tell Kenyans, turn up in large numbers. Let them see, even if they attempt to steal, at least they'll know, hey, these guys walikuja wengi, we can't dare do this thing. So just show up. Even if we've lost, show up. And one thing is not just about voting. Always tell Kenyans, vote and protect your vote. You cannot tell someone that, oh, I cannot be an agent for free. I will not volunteer. You've struggled for 5 years. Surely 24 hours is something you can sacrifice for if you're looking at the future of the 5 years. So I think it's better to have shorter terms. If it comes to business, I think what cushions businessmen is tax policies. You know, we do not have a tax policy in place. It's something that has been in conversation. Two, the finance bills that come, they're always changing yearly. How about we had something that is like 5 year old, it goes for 5 years. A business person will be able to plan. I think that is the angle we should take. Most of the Kenyans feel like, okay, we cannot have business during election time for fear of violence. I think our elections have continuously become peaceful over time. So I think what makes people maybe hold back is the money circulation, they are a bit worried. But I think going forward, we've been more peaceful with time, we've matured with time. So maybe the issue of tax policy, a finance bill that is more long-term is something that will get us there. And also businesses, being a business person, I think what makes Kenyans worried is maybe you're not certain that if this one wins, there's going to be war. I encourage Kenyans, more of you run, be involved in politics. So that even if you're worried that if this one doesn't win, there's another team that maybe they'll have a coalition with, just to tone down the temperatures.
Okay.
Yes.
Our question this morning, do you support Senator Samson Cherargei's proposal to increase the presidential term to 7 years? That's a big question this morning. You can interact with us on our social media pages, on X, TV47 News, and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. You're watching Morning Cafe. We'll continue this conversation after the break. Ndimuli. I'm still in studio with Raphael Obonyo, public policy analyst, Justina Wamae, former deputy presidential candidate, and Josphat Kamanya, political analyst. We want now to move to more discussions about what's happening within the ruling Kenya Kwanza coalition and the UDA party. And I'll refer to the front page of Taifa Leo this morning, Nyumba ya Kelele. Hali si shwari tena katika serikali ya Kenya Kwanza inayokumbwa na migogoro kona zote na uasi wa ndani. And it actually gives us instances where there are cracks On one hand, we have Cleophas Malala and the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula. This emanates from that call by Cleophas Malala, the SG of UDA, for other Kenya Kwanza coalition parties to collapse and join UDA, and the Speaker is not happy about that. We see what's happening with the Deputy President and the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Investments, Moses Kuria. We see what's happening in the Water Ministry between Head of Public Service, Felix Koskei, and CS there. See what's happening between Senator Khalwale and David Nandi, calling for people to be fired. So many cracks are emerging, and they're emerging immediately after that 1 year anniversary. And they say 1 year is not enough for anything to happen, but 1 year is enough for cracks to emerge. There are so many. It would appear, because the president appears to have secretly or sneaked back home over the weekend, no one knew. Yes. This morning is scheduled to have something at the Uhuru Park. But he's coming back to firefight. He is marking 1 year in office. There are a lot of things not going right for him.
I think it's because one is I'm yet to come across a politician who is not ambitious. You know, politicians always want more. You know, so you give him this position, they want more from it. So that is what is also happening within the government or the coalition, that everyone is trying to consolidate their powers and mark their turf. So for me, it's the nature of politics. The other issue is about interest. Politicians are not interest-free. They might be in the same coalitions, but each one of them have their own interests. So I think they're just trying to advance and pursue their interest. But I think my major problem is the management of the coalition or government or people in government. I think that is what is lacking. And I think at the beginning there was sort of a semblance of unity, consultations, but you rarely see that where there were meetings, they were engaging. I think you don't see that as much. And what has happened is I think perhaps the president is involved in the bigger agenda of trying to sort out the economy, and he's forgotten that you need to manage politics for you to even achieve those big agendas. So he spends perhaps less time engaging with his team and perhaps doing a lot of bilaterals or global engagement. So he needs to calm down and manage, because otherwise whatever he's trying to pursue won't work, because politicians will continuously, consistently and constantly pursue their interest, and sometimes it's against what the bigger agenda is.
And it reminds me of that tweet early this year by David D on the president using the first year of his term to manage the politics. And he said that is probably what Kibaki got wrong in his first year in 2003, that he did not take time to manage the politics. He just went on to work, and then the politics ended up messing his performance. 1 year is passed. We saw the president really handle politics. Immediately he starts getting busy with other things, cracks start emerging.
Now, that's the question. If Kibaki failed, Ruto is doing it, then what is the problem? The problem is politicians. And I think Uhuru won the war by having technocrats. And the funny thing is that politicians were saying, these technocrats do not even know the struggle we went through to win this government. They are disrespecting us. Now, the same politicians who are now in CS or who are in cabinet, it seems they have forgotten the struggle they went through. Now they are fighting. And the funny thing I'm seeing is people from my area, the Mount Kenya region. And I've told them time and again, stop saying serikali ni yetu. You guys are just makangas. Accept your position. Because I think now the battle is, we want a 50-50 thing. I think that is what is coming into play. And then they're forgetting that we know who the president is, the region he comes from. It is time for the people of Mount Kenya to first tone down, accept their positions, and they should handle themselves internally. Sadly, politicians have visions. 2027 is here. They're not focusing on what the president's agenda. If he had technocrats, people who had visions besides Kenya, out of Kenya, UN and all those things, I don't think he'd be having this problem. Because I think most after Uhuru left, his cabinet, some of them went international. So they were performing to be seen internationally. So I think going forward, you should look for people who have bigger visions apart from being in Kenya. I think that's one. Number two, we should strengthen political parties instead of individuals. When someone says, I'm voting for this party, what does that party stand for? Even a child who's at home should realize this party stands for this. So now we vote for people, we vote for the individual in whatever party is. We don't know the ideology, the principles, why you're standing for that party. But if you are voting for a political party, we didn't even care about those individuals who are there. We'd know that if you're there, your principle is that there's meritocracy, there's honesty, there's, all those things, pragmatism. But now, individuals come with their own styles. They're not dictated or they're not governed by any core value. And they come doing their own things and everyone is just, they're pulling in different directions. So I think that's the challenge.
Do you think, for example, the fact that Kenya Kwanza is a coalition, the president initially wanted a very strong party, yes, that being in a coalition does affect the DNA of even the strongest party there, that even UDA is not necessarily distinguishable from ANC and Ford Kenya.
That's the thing. If they were distinguishable, we'll see UDA stands for this, climate action. The other stands for maybe the integrity of parliament. So when you're pushing your agenda in that coalition, you're pushing that we want a budget for climate action. We want a budget for parliamentary integrity. We want a budget for maybe whatever. So at least of businesses and capitalism, if they were focusing on the ideology. But now people come there because they're individuals. So even if you're fighting for personal interests, not the ideology of the party. And I think that is why when you go to the political parties at the ORPP, she's really encouraging people to define their ideology. What is the ideology? There are political parties, even in Germany, that their ideology is just educational reforms. They are economic reforms. So when you're in a coalition, you know that you are here because of education reforms. But now, what does ANC stand for? What does CK? What does this one, Chap stand for? Nothing. They are not clear. And that is why I think there's so much collusion.
And that could be part of the problem. I was reading one of the opinions in the dailies over the weekend, and someone opined that the president may not necessarily be in control. It is assumed he is, but the kind of pre-election deals they got into, it appears that he's held ransom by the same. The fact that some of these cabinet appointments were purely because of coalition forming, and as opposed to getting technocrats. For example, Moses Kuria came with his own party. Maendeleo Chapchap, the Foreign Affairs CS, came with his own party. And that was a promise. Because the deputy president mentioned one thing and he said, Moses Kuria hakuna mahali anaenda. And the feeling is that probably the kind of pre-election deals that they got into protect some of these CSs for some time, for a certain period. Don't you think that probably that is the weakness that the president is now facing?
Well, building of a government or establishing an administration does not happen after an election, we all know. And that's why you have parties, you have pre-election deals, you need to have partners. And when you launch a presidential campaign, you must be able to deliver, according to the Constitution, a specified amount of votes from specific regions for this government to be legitimate. Now, the terrain we were on coming to this past election was very tough. And it would have been almost impossible for any single-handed person to win without a coalition. And that's why you saw there was the Azimio, and then we had ourselves the Kenya Kwanza, because we needed to canvass across the country for just a 50+1, whether it is +1% or +1 vote, but just the bare minimum to get through. And any logical presidential candidate, to be very fair, needed to have leaders from across the country, different regions, different parties, different ideologies, so that we can have this well-integrated system or party or a coalition that will help you form government. Then it raises a question, so after you win, what happens? That's where now the pre-election deals come in. And I think people are being a bit tough on the current CSs that we have. Because, one, politically they delivered because they're in government. Secondly, I have not seen any performance contract that one has been deemed not to have really delivered. And that's what we need to focus on. We need to stop politicizing. And you've heard these CSs saying, now I'm not doing politics, let me work for the Kenyans. We need to go back and see, okay, you're the CS for the trade, you're the CS for water, for health, for communication, ICT, and all that. what is your mandate? What is your function? What is your jurisdiction? So that even when they make statements out of their function, we don't take that and say, now the Kenya Kwanza is in crisis. You look at Malala now, he's head of the party, or rather that is where he's most focused on. So we have to allow him the thread to develop his own party, because UDA is a party, is a legitimate party, is a presidential party, president's party, and much as their coalitions, the Kenya Kwanza, you know, with the Papua Aroma and Mudavadi, and many more will come as we head to the next general election. We need to respect that you cannot run a government without a party. Okay. And if we borrow now an example from Israel, there is no single government that has been formed in the last almost 20 years, the single party. They are always coalescing. Because you win, you have a bare minimum, depending on the system, you have to merge. And these mergers, they only help enrich your ability to deliver. So the CSs are quite in order. I don't see anything wrong with the deputy president and the CS trade having a conversation on political conversation.
On X.
Yeah. No, in public.
Raphael, the president now has been on a trip to the US.
Yes.
Attending the UN General Assembly and discussing, meeting other leaders and heads of governments. And he has been forced to carry another individual to represent the trade docket. Yeah. Someone who's not the trade CS, but a former trade CS. Yet he's not able to fire an errant.
But is that fact? Is that statement?
Well, the fact that CS Kuria was not in the US, that is fact.
Is a fact.
Yeah. I mean, I think Josphat is really being kind and a bit cautious in the way he's handling this. But obviously, it's when you're mesema ni nyumba ya kelele. I mean, there are problems already, and it starts and fails with how you manage politics. If President Ruto fails to manage politics, I don't think he's going to achieve anything in those other fronts, economic or social. So we cannot actually overlook the fact that, for example, Kuria and Rigathi are fighting for kingpinship, to be the kingpins of Mount Kenya. You cannot ignore that. You cannot ignore the fact that the CS water is being directed by the chief of staff from State House. Because we see all that, and that's politics. And there's really nothing unusual about it. The issue for me is, how do you manage that? And for me, I would say, and Justina, I think, has alluded to that, the president had different options of getting people to be part of his team. The option that he chose, the model that he chose, was to involve politicians in his team. There are repercussions to that. There are advantages and disadvantages to that. And for me, what I see in terms of this noise is that 2027 is not far. Politicians are already seeing 2027. They're not seeing where they've come from. Two, it will be impossible to do some of the things that the president wants to do to be able to achieve economic targets. For example, that thing, you need a strong political party. It is impossible to collapse parties within Kenya Kwanza, because history has it that once you lose your party, you become irrelevant. Mudavadi is not going to lose his ANC, even if he's the sole candidate or sole party member. Wetangula is always coming with Ford Kenya whenever elections approach. He's not going to lose that so that he boards your vehicle. So I think it's going to be really, really, really tough for him to manage the political situation. And if he fails to do that, I think it will be worse than Kibaki's, because I think if you do not manage politics, those other things are just stories. These politicians don't care about your agenda for economic and everything. So he needs to come now. In fact, the president should spend more time with his team trying to, manage them than doing the runs outside.
Is he looking for an easy way out by getting other people to do the job and the CS is just remaining as figureheads? That example I've just used about the trade docket.
Yes, I think his hands are tied. And Josphat, we're not the ones who are saying they're not performing. Even their own senators. You see, Senator Home Wamatinga says, Kuria has failed in his mandate. So even them themselves are weighing Kuria and they're saying, Uyu ameshindwa na kazi. That is why he's causing drama, so that we don't see how he's not performing. So when I look at the whole conversation, even when the way they were campaigning, The president was telling us, nikiweka Biblia chini. So our expectations as Kenyans, given that he has over 30 years experience in government, is that we knew he has the ropes, anajua kupenya penya, and things will be easier. So one, he needs to blame himself because he put he put an expectation too high and he's not performing. And then them themselves are saying that the CSs are not performing. In fact, there's someone who said, if he cannot perform, let him go. That is Wamatinga who said they are from the same region. So I think even what is playing out here is kingship, kingpinship in the Mount Kenya region, sadly. But the president has an option. He has like 4 more years to go. Even if he throws someone out now and then he performs and Kenyans feel that he's performing.
Do you think he has that option? Do you think he has that option?
I don't think he has
Yeah, 4 years.
No, I don't think he has that option because just what he just said it right. You know, before forming a government is really, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. And so there are some agreements, you know, there are some deals that people have. And I'm sure those are the deals that he's trying to...
Do you think, for example, he's able to fire the prime CS? Tell Mudavadi, you can no longer occupy that position.
Legally, he can. But does he
Legally,
have a reason?
yes.
Yeah, does he have a reason?
He has a reason to
You see, even what Wamatinga is saying, the Senator for Nyeri, that CS Kuria is failing on his mandate. What is he failing on? CS Kuria has been around the country, excuse me, launching the aggregation zones. For the last 2 weeks, I think he's been to each and every county. And he's trying to set up, because you need a system, you need structures. We've been talking about one product, one county. You get? So that we are able to now revitalize the economics of the county. Let's put politics aside and now look at the economics, because that is what we need now. If we continue with this political mood for the next 24 months, then we'll have achieved nothing economically. And we'll keep complaining. And then the election will come, things will go down, as we said, as you're building up to an election, everybody backpedals economically and business-wise. And then what will happen to the common mwananchi? So you need to put politics aside and say, okay, fine, you do have a mandate as a CS. You need to make sure if it's the water CS, there is water, the systems are running. We saw the chair who just resigned or was fired, the CEO.
Yeah.
If you look at trade, what are we looking at? Are these aggregation zones beneficial to the counties and to the country? If he's delivering and he's going around and launching them, we support him.
What do you make of his absence from the president's trip?
He was busy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. He was busy. You know, what have we not seen him do in the last 1 month that he was supposed to be doing?
Last week we saw an article in one of the dailies talking about how Aidan Mohammed was introduced as a CS for trade at that meeting, meaning that there was necessity for the CS of trade to be present at some of those deliberations.
I don't want to...
Are you saying that launching industrial parks in Laikipia and Siaya was more important than that trip to the US?
Yes, because we're here to serve countries. If a national trip comes up and I can be represented, because remember then, the president is the CEO of this country. He can choose to take me with him or take him or yourself to represent the interest of the Kenyans. We have to individualize these processes of forming government and ruling and leadership, so that when you're not there, Fred, we don't start saying TV47 is going down. No, we need to have transition, we need to have longevity, we need to have collaboration, because there is no single there's no single ministry that works in independence.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that obviously there's something wrong, not just with the optics, but the functionality of government. Remember, a president is not an implementing office. The president does not implement. That's why in every meeting, if a CS is not there, or a PS is not there, because the PS is the budget holder. The president can talk to whomever he wants, but if the budget holder or the CS who is in charge of a ministry is not there, it means that it's just another talk. The economic advisor, for that matter, does not have a legal office or a budget to implement any deal agreed. That's why it is always very important for the CS and the PS at that level to be there. The fact that they were missing from very crucial engagements in the United States, and not just that, we've seen Moses Kuria being absent in many conversations where the president is present,
elsewhere.
even here, and I think there's a problem with that.
And I just wanted to say also, Josphat, performance for politicians is not necessarily about you delivering on the targets. There could be a lot more. It could be, this is what we agreed that you're supposed to do. Maybe you're supposed to get this on board certain people. So the way we look at performance is not necessarily the way politicians look at performance. So when, for example, Wamatinga says Moses Kuria is not performing, they do not necessarily mean that he's not doing the work that is meant to do. Maybe they mean he's overstepping or he's outshining, or it means a lot more. But the fact that he was missing, there's a big concern, and the fact that the president even went to San Francisco, to the Silicon Valley, and Eliud Owalo was missing, shows there's a problem. We've already seen the CS, ICT fighting with the PS, Interior, over control of Nyanza. It means there is a problem, and that's why I'm saying the president has a tough job to manage all these fires.
Or could it be that the president also just wants to do everything by himself?
I've always said the president comes off as a one-man show.
He doesn't want to delegate.
He just wants to be seen like he's in control. Maybe ndio kusema I know everything. And there's a time he was campaigning, he was saying, ati wale watu wanavuta bangi na ni walevi. Mimi sikuvutangi, something to that effect. I think when you try to tell him something, maybe he look at you and ask you, mimi navuta bangi, mimi nakunywa pombe, mimi si mjinga. You know, that I assume that maybe that is what he says behind the scenes. So guys tend to keep off him. And just for you having some KK vibe, Kenya Kwanza vibe here, and I'll tell you this, what has he failed? The G2G agreement, as the CS of investment and trade, now we're having a problem. We're going to pay this oil, whatever, at a higher rate because of inflation of the dollar. Then the cooking oil, the edible oil thing, guys are asking, you're saying that in Ruiru they're selling cooking oil at 230. And on the ground, what are the Kenyans saying? There's a time he told farmers, if you're not selling your maize, we are going to come for you. I think he threatened farmers. So in short, the ordinary Kenyan is not feeling the impact. And let me tell anyone in leadership, whether you are appointed or elected, the ordinary Kenyan should feel the impact, the positive impact. If it's cooking oil for the cheap, the cheap cooking oil, let the ordinary Kenyan feel, okay, it has come, I have bought it, I have seen it. But telling us on TV is not helping. So has he failed? Yes, he has. And then, the fact that he came off, that I've worked in Saudi Arabia, I've been advising banks. So Kenyans are like, what has happened to all that Akili you had? Where is that brain? So the guy has failed. But I want to challenge the president. Jitingishe like Kibaki, see it through out akina Raila. So let's see what happens now. Because even over time, at that time Kenyans were emotional. When akina Raila were thrown out of the coalition government, guys were like, hey. But now Kenyans will say, okay, you thrown out someone because they're not performing.
You saw the cost, eh? Like
but the Kenyan of today are the ones who are telling the president, you guy, deal with this guy. At that time, Kenyans were emotional towards politics. Now they're like, no, you need to deliver. And let me tell you, Kibaki did a very good thing, making sure that we are literate. So Kenyans are understanding, if you're not performing, if your key performance indicators are the cooking oil, the G2G agreement, if you're not being seen physically there, then you're not performing.
Yet there must be some greater risk that exists with the potential firing of any cabinet secretary right now. Yes, calls are there. People are saying fire this one. It's no longer a secret. What kind of risk are we looking at? What kind of risk does the president stand to face if at all he fires?
If you're talking about meritocracy, it goes both ways. If I fail to deliver on my mandate, and remember, they all signed their contract, performance contract. We saw it. It was televised for all Kenyans to
Some were late and locked out. I don't know if they signed eventually.
They were let in after, but with a stunt warning. So if somebody has failed on their performance contract, they're not able to deliver and serve the Kenyans, who are then the employers, actually. It is you and I who pay them. Then meritocracy goes ways. Meritocracy is not just on hiring. It is also on firing. They should be let go. And on that note, there will not be any repercussion because you have failed to work. So whoever purports otherwise will have to, justify why should we keep a person who is not able to deliver. Not just for the... Yeah, even politically.
If at all CS Kuria is fired,
yes.
will he not be an issue, especially in the Mount Kenya
region? If it is on the basis of him having failed, and there is enough evidence to attest to that, no one will support somebody who is not able to deliver. Because remember, even those who are politically ambitious, they also have people around them. And if you're not able to deliver on a single mandate that could, if you delivered, could propel you politically forward, then these people have no business hanging around you. What we need now is a paradigm shift. Because you see already, the antagonists are the ones who are telling the story of the unsuccessful tendencies of our Kenya Kwanza government. We need to change that. We need to be realistic and look at exactly, it is just a year old. So that's the administration we are having. It's not right to compare with the administration of Kibaki that went for 10 or 1.5 years, terms. Neither is it fair to compare it with the Uhuru's government that went for 1.5 term. Let's give the government time. Okay. Let's be patient, but let's also criticize, and give feedback.
Raphael gave an example about how such cracks and such divisions in Kibaki's government led to a loss in what Kibaki was pushing for, the 2005 referendum. Yeah. We are now also looking at a similar situation, that we could possibly have a referendum, probably even before 2027. The president must be keen to ensure that his house is united, and any cracks or anyone being let go off this soon could actually prove costly to him.
Rightly so. we have to be cautious. We cannot say all is well. We need to be careful, like any other good father of the homestead. When your kids are fighting, or playing, not even fighting, when the kids are playing, you have to keep a very watchful eye, because they could easily hurt one another or trip and fall, such like stuff. So the same applies to our president. He's the father of the nation, he's the lead of government, the commander-in-chief. There are shake-ups, I agree, but there are not shake-ups that are making cracks and making government unmanageable and the administration not able to run. This, you keep quoting very well. CS, ICT with CS, let's say sports, they're talking about the Nyanza control. They're not talking about work. Those are political interests. So we have to separate these two. And I think moving forward, we have to be very progressive and strictly define and confine functions of elected persons, nominated persons, the CSs, the governors, so that if a CS, whatever ministry they might be heading, they don't overstep and start indulging in political mode and political campaign, whether you come from Central or Nyanza or Coast. Because remember, every Kenyan now is counting on CSICT to roll out a certain program that will affect even a school-going kid. Every Kenyan is counting on CS Health to roll out a program that will affect a very elderly person in the North Horr. So if these people start engaging in politics, who suffers? It is the common mwananchi. And the president has been very keen. He says, wadosi wetu ni hawa wa Kenya. Okay. These are the people who have put us in office. So let's serve them.
We saw that exchange between the deputy president and the CS for Trade on X, and eventually they realized, probably we went a bit overboard. They tried to contain their exchanges. But definitely for the president to continue having that kind of feeling between senior leaders of his cabinet going forward, that would be more of a burden than probably letting off one of them.
Yeah, it's a huge burden, but you know what they normally say, it is easier to manage a politician when he's on the inside than when he's outside. So I think that is something that that's a fact that he needs to be alive to, that kicking them out might cause more, it's more of a political damage to him than having them make noise on the outside. Take it, now of course the government has not been able to meet the expectations of wananchi as was desired in terms of, creating jobs and tackling the high cost of living. Right now, if you kick anyone out, it means that you've given them fodder to go out and say, look, this government is not performing, I've been trying to do this. So it really depends with the narrative. So you might be creating a king just by kicking them out. And that's why I think the president is cautious not to kick anyone out. But the second thing is that we do not know about the pre-election deals that they had, leave alone the formal and official bit. We really don't know what they agreed with these party leaders on what they should give or deliver for them to be given position. So these people are also entitled. Like Moses Wetangula, he came with his Fort Kenya and he says he's the one who made the president. That is not someone you're going to kick out so easily. He made you president, so he's entitled almost. Moses Kuria came with his political party. He would say, look, I decided not to vie because I was supporting you, and on that basis you owe me. So to a large extent, the president also owes these people. So it's not like he can just wake up one day, because if it was just that easy, he would have have seen a lot of changes. So there are pre-election deals, there are political consequences, which is sometimes very, very difficult to manage. And I really do not envy his position. Presidency is the most coveted job, but it's the toughest job, because you're not just delivering on what Mwananchi wants. You're also managing you know what you said, your kids. And some of these kids, they have some tendencies that are obnoxious and are very against, going almost against the ideals, the values, and makes it difficult for you to achieve your agenda. But if you ignore that, they can break your TV set. They can break something so important in the house. So you cannot ignore that. You cannot be the big man and say, I'm not going to be bothered about what is happening. For as long as Rigathi, the deputy president, and Moses Kuria are not operating in harmony, your agenda will never be achieved. So he cannot ignore that.
Anything to add to that?
I think they're giving Kuria too much credit, because why are they afraid of throwing him out? Remember, they come and tell us, some of you change your clothes at the airport. Some of you do this. So I'm trying to understand, what is this that is holding back the president? Why is it beyond his control? Even this Kuria that you're speaking about, and many others, I think he also needs to tame himself. Even if you feel like the president cannot do anything, then just support his agenda, because you're in his government. But let me say that the problem you have in this country is that politics is lucrative. If you're scared that if I throw you out, you will not thrive out there, then the president has 4 years to make the life of ordinary Kenyans easier, to make private sector thrive, so that at least when you throw someone out, they won't die of hunger, or they will not be able to pay their mortgage. They'll go into business and they'll do something else. So we need options beside politics, that you don't have to be a politician to be able to prosper in this country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's now cross over and look at the situation on the other side. We've talked enough about Kenya Kwanza.
Yeah.
And,
Have we talked enough? Or?
we'll continue talking about it. But for this session, I think that's enough. I'm looking at a tweet here by Professor Makao Mutua.
Yes.
And it's saying that it's sad to see senior folks like Honorable Wetangula of Kenya Kwanza and Martha Karua of Na Kenya retreat to their ethnic cocoons. Ms. Karua is now in Kamwene, a Kikuyu outfit, and Wetangula is calling for Luya ethnocentrism. Have they abandoned the Kenyan nation as a realistic idea? And even without going to the Western Kenya side, this Kamwene is causing ripples within the Azimio coalition. And you've seen Honorable Kioni, who's head of the technical team for the Azimio side at the talks in Bomas. And his comments about whether or not the talks will be consequential have not gone down very well with his members of his side. And this caucusing around your community, even when you're discussing national issues under a big umbrella, definitely is an issue of concern. Is it really necessary? Do you find it necessary for them to caucus along those lines?
Sometimes we don't give enough credit to the efforts around various leaders towards upgrading the wellness, or rather informing the democracy of our nation. And it would be very unfortunate to ask people to abandon, one, what they know. And what they know is the communities they come from, the needs that arise from those communities, and the needs that can be addressed either from the county level, the national level, or the general policy level. So when you see people retreating, and I don't understand how sometimes they're very generous to say, if you look at the West, they do this and the other, we should be doing it. But when it comes to critical issues, like now, when it comes to informing a potential constitutional review, we don't want people to consult. And every day we are talking about public participation. If you look at the same West people, it's not my favorite point of reference, area of reference. But if you look, they'll talk to the Hispanics, the Red Indians, the leaders from those communities will retreat fast and come and say, if you're looking at taxation without representation, how do you go about that? All those public policies, they're informed by the needs of the various communities. There is nothing wrong with Martha Karua, Moses Wetangula, and any other person consulting the community they're coming from.
Have they identified a gap in Kenya Kwanza's representation, especially of the Mount Kenya region?
I wouldn't say that. Towards what? Like a gap towards what? We are not in an elective mode yet. Those are the things we need to decipher and differentiate. Right now, we need to let the administration work and criticize, to the best of our ability, because you don't, again, and I think we all can agree, you don't want yes men around you. You don't want CSAs or governors or MPs or even any another person of a leader around you who just waits for you to say jump and they ask you how high. You know, you need some independence of thought, because that helps you to have integrated decisions and policies that can even make your administration better, because there is no one man who can know it all for this nation of ours known as Kenya. So it is okay. I don't think there is a gap, no, but I do believe it is okay for people to retreat. Maybe if Mother Karua still has interest, like my sister here just said, she's looking to the presidency in the near future. If she still has interest, she needs to go back and either launch her party from the grassroots or see how she went wrong and what she can do next, right, when the time comes. And also, maybe, because remember, she's been very vibrant when it comes to the development of our constitution and also the democracy of this nation. There could be issues that she may bring to the table that will be worth listening to, regardless of a political divide. So sometimes let's put down our political outfit and sit down and say we are Kenyans. What is best for the nation?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me it's quite unfortunate in the sense that our politicians, our political parties have really failed us. We've not been able to mobilize and organize around issues. We mostly mobilize and organize around our ethnic groupings. And that way it becomes very difficult to champion or to look at things beyond what our ethnic communities want us. And of course, reeling back and always getting back to, like what Professor Makawa is saying, back to our cocoon is the easiest way of mobilizing and organizing. But I think more and more we should look for leaders who can mobilize around issues more than just around the communities. And I thought part of the political parties reforms, or whatever we are trying to do in terms of reforms to ensure that we have political parties based on ideology, I think we've not been able to achieve that. And so it becomes very, very difficult for us to be able to strengthen our democracy, because what does it take for me to run for office? It just takes me registering a party and going back to my place of birth. And that way people don't care about what I stand for, what I'm championing. People just care that I was born and brought up there. And so in terms of delivery, I deliver zero, because I'm not elected based on anything. It's just because we have some sort of association and connections based on our community. I think we should move from that, and our generation must refuse to be mobilized and organized around tribe only. Yeah.
Same question I posed to Josphat. Do you think that probably this group, Mount Kenya group within Azimio, has identified a gap that probably Kenya Kwanza has been unable to fill within that region, and they feel that probably they should get into it now, the sooner the better?
Most certainly, and I like the way Josphat says that we are from elections and now we should allow the government time to deliver on its promises. Unfortunately, that is not how it works in any democracy. In a democracy, you are constantly challenged, so you have to chew gum while climbing stairs. And I think at some point, the president was being a bit naive, assuming that people will just sit back and watch him implement his agenda. People will criticize you, will challenge you, sometimes they will compliment you, and so that is what is happening. And I think, because Martha in Azimio, they've realized that representatives of the Mount Kenya within the Kenya Kwanza are not pushing enough for the Mount Kenya agenda, also because perhaps they are afraid of antagonizing or causing explosion within the political party. But on the ground, people want someone who can save them, and it could be that they are looking for someone who can help them. You've heard in Mount Kenya people complaining about the prices of coffee. You've heard people complaining about the prices of tea. They don't care about anything else that is happening. So you can talk about, we are trying to sign these bilaterals, but for as long as you are not touching their needs, they feel that they are not being represented. Okay. And you see someone like maybe the deputy president or even Moses Kuria, they are keen not to cause more cracks within the party by pushing the agenda too much. But so I think Martha Karua and the Kionis of this world have decided, there's a gap there, let's step in. And before you realize, people will be coalescing around them because they'll feel you're championing our agenda.
Just on this issue of Kamwene.
First, when we do our SWOT, we have an opportunity. 8 million Kenyans did not vote. It means these 8 million Kenyans were looking out for someone who's focusing on ideas, on issues. So I think there is opportunity there that needs to be tapped in. On the issue of Kamwene, I think what Martha is pushing for is 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. This is something that the Kenya Kwanza people in Mount Kenya are not able to speak about. Remember, many of them told us that they didn't have campaign money, they were funded by the president. So of course they'll be biting the hand that fed them. However, I think if Martha she's doing it wrong, what she should do, because being in Azimio, she should maybe whip the guys or have a conversation with them and convince them that if you want the Mount Kenya vote coming years, then let us support the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. And then once the Azimio guys are supporting her agenda, she just gets a few of Kenya Kwanza, you know, those rebels, and they'll support the vision. So I think going back to tribal cocoons will give us the situation that the other day Mudavadi told us. The reason I stopped walking with Uhuru Kenyatta, I went to Central and found he has built so many roads. And now I'm challenging because they're in government. Can they build from Limuru to Uganda? So that at least if it is about feeling the warmth of government, which is roads, then you can do it, because now you're at a point of influencing policy, influencing tenders and development. So I think Kamanya is not going to take us anywhere, given the fact that 8 million Kenyans who are now thinking issues, who are now thinking, we know that the economic policy made by politicians is making my company shut down. I think it's retrogressive. And politicians need to realize that citizens have moved ahead. They need to catch up with citizens. Yes.
The other issue that I want us to talk about before we wrap up this session is the role of not just what we would call the opposition, but also civil society, workers' unions, in fighting for the plight of Kenyans, fighting for the needs of the Mwananchi. We've witnessed over time that Azimio appears to have gone mute, especially on this issue of the high cost of living, once the price of fuel hit 211. And they are not as vocal as they were a few months before. Trade unions, let's not even talk about them. I think they live in State House. Civil society too has gone quiet. And you wonder, what exactly is happening? These are the things, these are the times when you need these different organizations, the opposition, the civil society, the workers' union. How come on issues of taxation, the workers' unions are in total agreement with the government? How come civil societies are not up in protest? How come the opposition is mute on this matter? Is it capture, and to what extent?
No, there is no state capture, far from it. You see, this is what happens when the opposition is seeking to join government from the back door. They will not come out as loud, as strong as they should. And it's a very unfortunate, phase we are going through as a nation. Because even when you are in office as a president, you want an opposition that is working. Because it helps you shape, the tone of the nation, the tone of development, and also keeps you abreast on issues on the ground that you need to improve on. So I think it's a call, as you say, to the opposition. They're trying to, in my opinion, to hide behind the National Dialogue Committee. And remember, we used to agitate as a Kenya Kwanza team that the issues that you're going to table, let them reflect the issues of cost of living, yada yada, and not about positions for specific individuals. And let's televise that conversation, That's what we are pushing for, because we have to understand that we cannot keep on campaigning, and there are different forms and ways of campaigning. It doesn't have to be an election. It could be now this post-election coalition and understandings, and sometimes they hurt the country at large. So the opposition needs to come out, the civil society, the unions. If there are any issues that they do feel honestly they're affecting the common Mwananchi, these are the bodies that can talk away from now the politicians or the government and the opposition. And them not coming through, the leadership of these unions and organizations actually needs to be held accountable. Honestly speaking.
The issues, I think, can never get more obvious than
the cost of living, I agree.
Yeah. But surely, don't you think that we are heading very first towards a dictatorship, if at all the civil society has gone quiet? The trade unions are already working with government in total, and the opposition, or what we call opposition, is mute.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate and a sad state of affairs, in the sense that for our democracy to thrive and function properly, I think we need both a strong opposition, a strong civil society, and strong trade unions. And each of these sectors or formations need to play their part. On the part of the opposition, I think they are channeling everything now to the bipartisan talk. I think they're waiting to see, because there's something in there for them as politicians. There's something in there for them. So you don't want to disrupt that. So they are watching to see if they are going to get their stick through that bipartisan. So they don't want to really be, they wouldn't want to be loud, politically speaking, because they have a space there. For trade unions, I think, of course, Kotu's position, and especially the SG, Francis Atwoli, his position is threatened in the sense that if he becomes loud, he's out. He knows very, very well. So he's also careful on how they do, which is quite unfortunate, because we should see them coming out and challenging. On civil society, I think the challenge has been, one, the transition in leadership. We do not have really strong leadership in civil society, but also in the way development partners have shifted their ways of supporting agendas within the country.
There's no money.
There's no money. Most money now is going directly to government. They prefer to work with government than to support civil society. So it means that civil society is fairly weak. But these three formations and more need to come out. And we've seen, were it not for the media sometimes raising some of these concerns, I think no one would have even spoken about these things. And without that, we are going to end up with the one-party state. And one-party state, you know what they say about power? Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, and that's why for me, I'm even against the idea of collapsing these political parties to form one big formation, because we need to see these formations challenging each other of course, for the sake of the common mwananchi.
Yes, when everyone pledges allegiance to the government of the day, there will be trouble down the line. One party, that's a push right now by the biggest ruling party. It enjoys a significant majority in the Houses of Parliament. Trade unions are keen to work with this government, and they're not even making it a secret. The opposition is keen to work with this government, and they're using the bipartisan talks as a way to end up there. And admittedly by Raphael Obonyo, who's also a member of the civil society, there's no money for the civil society. So who will speak for the Kenyan?
And I think that the tragedy comes that, for example, if civil society want to make a proposal, they need to use a politician. You see, they are not at the space of making the decision. Whether trade unions, whether you want something, a salary increase, you need to work with politicians. And that is why I'm taking them back to Article 4. Kenya is a multi-party state democracy. So why not have their own political party? Why not have their own people in those positions, so that when they want to influence policy, they have a voice, instead of going to beg someone to do it for you. Remember, the more if they ask for salary increase, government is realizing we don't have a budget, they're going to stifle their voice. They're going to tell them, you guys gojeni kidogo. And then maybe you're told, if you talk too much, you're going to deal with you. So if they were in those positions of decision making, as maybe the teachers' party, the farmers' party, the whoever party, at least they'll have a voice from a political angle. So that is why I always challenge Kenyans. We just don't need 2 political parties. We need more, even 200, them better for us. Everyone with their own ideology and what they stand for. If you're a civil servant and you want a political party, go for it, so that you be championing the issues of the civil servant. As it is, no one is speaking for the ordinary Kenyan. And that is why I told politicians, they need to catch up with the citizens. The citizens are realizing, you know what, you guys are messing us up. And that is why many Kenyans are saying, we still don't have options in terms of voting for people. And then I take them back to why the politics in this country are costly. Someone will not tell me, Justina, I vie for this position, yet I go back to dig into my kitty, I'll not be able to take my kids to school. Remember, after the election, many politicians went bankrupt. Guys spent their cash, and now again it affected their mental health. So if it's about supporting a political party, do it from the grassroots. 5 bob here and there will get the political party moving. So that is why I said from the word go, Kenyans, involve yourself in your political party of choice, where you feel your voice is being heard and your agenda is being propelled.
Okay. Final words, Josphat?
Let's give the government time. Kenyans, let's get involved. This narrative of shaping how our politicians and how our politics goes is entirely on us. We need to come out strongly as individuals, as party leaders, as politicians, as leaders in all square quarters, unions and otherwise, to support the government and criticize. Because we only have one country, that is Kenya. We can only make or break it. We all can see what is happening in the West African region. We don't want to go that route. We all can see what is happening in South Africa. They're experiencing load shedding, 8 to 16 hours without power, every day, real time. So Kenya is really advanced, and we have an an opportune moment to go through this contraction of our economics, and then we shall expand.
Thank you, Josphat. Raphael.
And I think for me is first to government to realize that time for celebration is over. I mean, this is a country now in crisis, actually. People are feeling the economic pains of increase in prices, joblessness, increase in fuel prices and taxation, and government needs to do something robust and fast. And I think there is no time. Time is running out, because I think the first year, if you do not deliver much, the second year people get into a campaign mode, and we're already in campaign mode because 2027 is not very, very fast. So the only way to avoid that is for government to deliver on the promises it made and what Kenyans desire. The other thing is, and I totally identify with Josphat's remarks, that Kenyans cannot be bystanders in this. They need to get involved. And I think we need to mobilize, organize, and try to, I've always talked about, complimenting government where they're doing right, to see how we can collaborate with them, challenging them when they're underperforming, but also criticizing them when they're not doing the right thing. I think we should not just stop at the point of voting. I think we should continuously, consistently, and constantly remain engaged in shaping a governance as we want it, and to ensure that the government of the day delivers on what they need to deliver to the common mwananchi. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Raphael. Justina, you get to wrap it up for us.
Last week, the Controller of Budget said that there's no money with the inflation and high debt, so there's a challenge that even government services may stall. This takes me back to what Kenyans say, that my MP I see him on the ground, he's giving us bursaries, he's giving us blankets. So I want to challenge the members of National Assembly that their role is not just to consume money that government is making. They have to go back to the National Assembly, think about how the government can make money. Because the tragedy is, even that CDF they talk about, one day may stall and they'll not be able to be on the ground. So we need more of producers and less of consumers.
Thank you so much, Justina Wamae, former presidential running mate, Raphael Obonyo, public policy analyst, and Josphat Kamanya, political analyst. Our panelists this morning helping us understand the state of the nation. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your very well-considered opinions on matters that affect this country. And now to editorial commentary. And today I want to talk to Kenyan youth about their conduct within the digital space. With our superior 5G connectivity, Kenya is at the forefront of this digital revolution within this region. However, recent trends show that many Kenyan youth are not harnessing this incredible resource to its fullest potential. Instead, they are misusing and/or abusing online platforms, exposing themselves to vices that offer little economic benefit, if at all. Now, the potential of the internet to empower individuals, particularly the youth, cannot be overstated. Social media and other online platforms provide unprecedented opportunities for content creation and the establishment of thriving online businesses. Yet, it is disheartening to observe the rising number of young people resorting to unethical interactions online. One of the most troubling trends is the proliferation of explicit and immoral content in a misguided pursuit of internet notoriety. Vulgarities and obscenities, just for the likes and to boost impressions, have become the order of the day, where many believe that intentional indecency over the internet could in some way pay. Now, this has led to some to compromise their dignity and self-respect to levels that could even shock the devil. It is essential to remind our youth that the internet never forgets, and the actions taken today can have lasting repercussions on their future. Choosing mediocrity and pursuing controversial or shameful acts solely for the purpose of gaining internet fame is a short-sighted approach that misses the true essence of the digital age. There is so much one can do on the internet,